Hey, I'm Sean, and I'm going to show you how to build a sellable agency. Not just one that survives because you're working 12-hour days. Not one that only grows because you personally solve every single problem. And definitely not one where taking a vacation probably feels like now, where it's like taking your hands off the steering wheel of a race car going 100 miles an hour. An actual sellable agency. One that doesn't depend on you for delivery, sales, or client retention, and frankly, doesn't depend on you for nearly as much as it does today. This is the exact framework that I've used inside my own agency over the last 8 years to grow from two of us working out of what felt like complete chaos into an agency now with more than 75 people and multiple 7 figures in revenue. It's also the same framework that I've used to help agency owners like Brian. Now, Brian runs a subscription growth consultancy, and he came to me because he couldn't stop being involved in client work. Every important decision ran through him. Every client engagement, every problem found its way back to his desk. Today, he's freed up so much time that he's launched an entirely new business that is already growing profitably. Then there's Brennan. When Brennan started, he was doing roughly 20 to 30K a month and working 70 to 80 hours a week. He was definitely exhausted. His team wasn't executing consistently. The quality was all over the place. He was on most client calls, and he was genuinely asking himself and me whether owning an agency was even worth it. And at that point, it probably wasn't. But today, he runs a 7-figure agency with a team of 10. He doesn't attend client calls. His team handles reporting. They catch problems before they become fires. And recently, he took a 2-week trip to Costa Rica while the agency continued operating without him. Then there's Landon. Landon thought that he had a growth problem. What he really had was a major positioning problem. He was charging next to nothing, selling nearly every service to nearly every type of client. We narrowed his ICP, we simplified his offer, reduced the scope of the offer, and we tripled his pricing. And he maintained roughly a 50% close rate while dramatically increasing profitability of the agency. This is 3 completely different agencies, 3 different problems, 3 different outcomes, but the same underlying issue. And I'll show you exactly what that issue is in just a minute. But first, here's what you need to know. Nothing I'm about to share comes from a book, didn't come from a certification I got, and it definitely didn't come from someone who's never actually run an agency before. It came from 8 years of me making almost every single mistake that I could make. I started exactly where most agency owners start. Undefined positioning, undefined services, no operating system, definitely no playbook. We had no roadmap. It was just me and my business partner trying to figure things out. Now, over time, we evolved from a generalist agency into a D2C agency running Meta, Google, and email. And eventually we transitioned into TikTok Shop. Today we have over 75 people, but getting here was not smooth. Far from it. I waited far too long to hire mentors. I waited too long to invest in myself. I avoided many difficult conversations I shouldn't have. I moved way too slowly just overall. I made hiring mistakes. I made leadership mistakes. I made money mistakes. And some of the mistakes were incredibly expensive. At one point, clients were churning as fast as the new clients were signing. That's when I realized something that has completely changed how I view agency growth. The problem generally isn't ever sales. It's not marketing. It's not lead generation. It's always tied back to operations. More specifically, the business depended on the founder, on me, far more than it should have. And once I saw that, I started seeing it everywhere I looked. Most agency owners have been sold a lie. They're told they need better people. They're told they need AI. They're told they need a pod structure, better time tracking, more clients, another framework, another system, another hack, another shiny object. And honestly, it's exhausting. Like, you're expected to hire better people, install AI, add management layers, track every single minute, build pods, get more clients, scale faster, move quicker, work harder. It's like watching someone build a second floor into a house while the foundation is cracking underneath them. The problem isn't the second floor. The problem is the foundation, because better people still need standards. Better people still need accountability. Better people still need leadership. AI doesn't fix messy agencies, it multiplies them. Pod structures don't solve accountability problems. Time tracking doesn't solve leadership problems, and getting more clients definitely doesn't solve operational problems. Most of the time, it just makes them far worse, because now you've got more revenue flowing into a system that already isn't working. More clients, more stress, more team problems, more founder dependency, more chaos. I see this every single day. Smart agency owners implementing smart tactics into broken businesses, and then wondering why nothing changes. The truth is simple. Most agencies don't lack tactics, they actually lack foundations. And until the foundations are fixed, every tactic becomes an expensive distraction. Here's what I believe. Agency ownership is one of the hardest businesses in the world. And the reason it's so hard is because there's almost no barriers to entry. Anyone can start one, which means that there's no manual, just an endless stream of people telling you what you should be doing next. The agency industry is one giant shiny object casino. Every day, someone is trying to sell a shortcut, a framework, a growth hack, a new AI tool, new acquisition strategy. And while you're chasing the next thing, the foundations still remain broken. Agency owners deserve better than that. You deserve to build a business that doesn't rely on your presence alone, to take time off without guilt, to stop being the escalation point for every problem, to stop feeling responsible for every client outcome, to stop carrying the entire business on your shoulders. And most importantly, you deserve to build something that has value beyond your personal effort. That's why you started this, right? Well, that's what Agency Uplift is all about. Helping agency owners build sellable agencies, not because you necessarily want to sell, but because an agency that is sellable has solved the right problems. A sellable agency runs without you. A sellable agency grows without you. It creates freedom. So what's actually going on here? Why do some agencies seem to get bigger, more profitable, and easier to run, while others get bigger, more stressful, and more chaotic? Well, after spending 8 years building my own agency from 2 people into a company of more than 75 employees, and after making every single mistake you could make, and after helping agency owners work through these exact challenges, I've found that almost every agency problem can be traced back to one of 3 areas. And this is what I call the sellable agency triangle. Now, at the top of the triangle, we have founder leadership. Bottom left is operational infrastructure, and bottom right is the client growth engine. Now, here's where most agency owners get themselves into trouble. They're obsessed with the client growth engine. They're thinking about leads, sales, pricing, offers, referrals, retention, growth. But they're trying to grow one side of the triangle while the other sides remain unbuilt and are collapsing. Or maybe they've built some systems and SOPs, but they're still the bottleneck. Or they improve accountability, but the clients are still leaving out the back door. The reality is that every agency needs all 3 sides working together. Founder leadership creates accountability. Operational infrastructure creates consistency. And the client growth engine creates profitability. And if one side becomes weak, the entire agency becomes unstable. It's exactly like building a house. You can't have a weak foundation and expect the second story to stay standing. It's just not going to happen. And the same thing happens inside agencies. And once you understand this, you start seeing it everywhere, like I did. The founder who's working 80-hour weeks, that's a founder leadership problem. The agency that's growing but becoming more chaotic every month, that's a problem with operational infrastructure. The agency that's signing clients but can't seem to hold on to them, that's a problem with the client growth engine. Most agencies don't have 20 different problems. They have one problem showing up in 20 different ways as symptoms. So let's walk through the triangle. Let's start with founder leadership. This is the side most agency owners don't want to hear about because it requires looking in the mirror. Most founders tell me, my team doesn't take ownership. Nobody cares as much as I do. Why do I have to solve everything myself? And I get it. I've said those exact same things myself. But here is the uncomfortable truth. The problem isn't ownership. It's leadership clarity. Nobody has clearly defined the standards. No one has clearly defined the expectations. No one has created accountability, and no one has created a rhythm for feedback. So what happens is the founder, or you, are the operating system. Every decision, problem, approval, escalation, it all flows through you. That's exactly, again, where Brian found himself. Now, if you remember, Brian runs a subscription growth consultancy. When he came to me, growth wasn't actually the thing that he wanted. It was freedom. For years, he felt like he needed to be heavily involved in client work. Client success depended on him. Client relationships depended on him. The team, the business, both depended on him. And he was constantly asking himself, how do I get my team to take more ownership? We started with the foundations, core values, role scorecards, accountability systems, weekly and monthly operating rhythms, leadership structures. Nothing about this is sexy, but that's exactly the point. Within a relatively short period of time, Brian became significantly less involved in client delivery. His team took greater ownership, then the business became less dependent on him. And his holy crap moment came when he realized he suddenly had enough capacity to launch an entirely new business. And that's what he did. And that business is already growing very profitably today. None of that would have happened if he was still buried in client delivery. Once leadership improves, we move on to the second side of the triangle, operational infrastructure. This is where agencies usually break. Revenue increases, complexity increases, headcount, client count, and then suddenly everything feels much harder than it did 6 months ago. Does this sound familiar? This is actually exactly where Brennan was. He was working 70 to 80 hours a week, constantly firefighting, constantly involved. He was looking for a savior hire to solve all of his problems, but the hire didn't end up being the solution, far from it. Because better people don't solve broken systems. Broken systems just break good people. The real issue was that his business had no system for accountability, no standards, no operating principles or a consistent way of working, so we built them in the form of playbooks, SOPs, accountability systems, hiring systems, clear standards, clear expectations, and eventually the team started operating completely independently. The holy crap moment came when Brendan took a 2-week trip to Costa Rica, and the agency kept running. When he came back, there were no emergencies, no disasters. He wasn't interrupted constantly while he was there. And that's what operational infrastructure does. The third side of the triangle is the client growth engine. And this is where most agency owners spend all of their time. But the irony is that most of them are solving the wrong problem. Now, Landon thought he needed more clients. What he actually needed was a completely different economic model. He wanted a D2C performance agency, but in reality, he was still running a generalist agency. He was selling everyone to everyone at prices that barely made sense. He didn't believe that clients would pay him more. So we clarified his ICP, clarified his offer, reduced the scope of the offer, and raised his pricing. And almost immediately, his limiting beliefs were shattered because clients kept buying. Close rates stayed strong, his profitability exploded, and the quality of clients improved. Because growth isn't about serving more people, it's actually about serving the right people the right way. And when you solve these three areas together, everything changes. Founder leadership, operational infrastructure, and the client growth engine. The agency becomes less dependent on you, the team becomes more accountable, clients stay longer, your profit improves, and growth gets easier. So here's the question. Looking at this triangle, which side is costing you the most money right now? Is it founder leadership, operational infrastructure, client growth, or possibly, and more likely, some combination of all three? Because here's what I've learned. Most agency owners dramatically underestimate the cost of founder dependency. They think that the cost is measured in hours. It isn't. It's measured in lost growth, profitability, leverage, freedom, and peace. And that's exactly why I created the Founder Leverage Review. It's a live working session, a free 30-minute session where we'll calculate the true cost of founder dependency inside your agency and identify your biggest leverage opportunities. First, we'll complete the founder delivery cost assessment together. We'll calculate founder hours trapped in delivery, wasted team capacity, hidden operational drag, and leverage gaps, and then the true potential growth opportunity that exists if your time is recovered. Then we'll pressure test the numbers. We'll identify what's driving them, which assumptions are accurate, which bottlenecks are creating the biggest drag, and whether founder dependency is actually the root issue. From there, we'll identify specific areas where you're still acting as the bottleneck: team accountability, delegation, client delivery, decision-making, communication, systems, visibility, and finally, we'll build a leverage roadmap. You'll leave knowing exactly what to fix first, what not to waste time fixing, and which changes create the biggest leverage, and what your next 30 to 90 days should focus on. Whether we work together afterward or not, you'll walk away with your completed founder cost assessment, a clear estimate of what founder dependency is costing you in dollars, identification of your biggest leverage bottlenecks, personalized 30 to 90-day action plan, and an estimate of how much founder hours could potentially be reclaimed. The session, again, only takes about 30 minutes. I personally conduct every single review, and it's only for agency founders that are generating at least $30,000 a month with at least one team member. And if we can't identify at least one meaningful leverage opportunity during the session, I'll tell you that directly, and we can end the call there. The question isn't whether founder dependency exists. The question is how much it's costing you today. So if you're an agency founder doing between 30 and 150K a month, if you're tired of being the bottleneck, if you're tired of solving the same problems over and over again, if you're tired of building a business that depends entirely on you, click the button below and book your free founder leverage review. In 30 minutes, you'll know where your leverage gap is, what's creating it, and what to do about it. I'll see you on the call.